What's up, guys? Welcome to QnA Volume 1. I've uploaded this before, but I had some audio problems, so I'm going to be running it back. Should be good though. I think the questions, I'll try to answer them a little bit differently, but I think a lot of people still haven't seen it because I warned them about the audio problem. So hope you guys still enjoy this, and it's a little bit easier to get through this time. So here are the questions once again. Question 1. Are you actually chilling like Mango says you are? Well, I am chilling, but the rest of the script that he has probably mentioned I can't comment on. So, that wouldn't be any fun to, lay the whole thing out there because there would be any surprise. So, that's kind of the magic. Alright, question 2. What music do you tend to listen to? I answered this before for the other Q&A, but I listen to Toho music. It's music coming out of Japan that was also developed for a certain series of fighting games, and it had its own set of music that came with it, and it became like its own kind of genre. I don't tend to listen to a lot of. I listen to like some pop music and things like that on the radio, but mostly I like listening to Toho because it's more upbeat. Doesn't have like a super sad message like a lot of songs do, and I don't know. I just tend to enjoy the higher tempo of everything. It just gets me going. It's kind of just my pace, I guess. And now we have a Smash question. What do you think of Marth's side B? I've seen Moon and some other Marths use the third hit down to get knockdowns and tech chases, and wanted to know what you think of the different hits and potential uses. Because there's 4 hits, there's a whole lot of stuff I can talk about for Marth's side B. I'll start with the part about knockdowns and tech chases. I know you can use the third hit downward, so when Marth steps forward and then he steps back with the third hit, to get to be kind of safe on shield, and if you can hit someone with it, it's kind of rare, but if you can, then you get a tech chase opportunity. I don't necessarily, I haven't seen that work too much at like high level and top level, but I'm sure, and there's a lot of room for, stuff like that at mid level where that can kind of work. Tech chases, I wouldn't use side B to hit someone out of a tech chase just because it's too slow. The hits take too long to come out. Like the strong one, by the time you get to the third or fourth hit, it just takes too long, and people can they can just get out or DI out of the first couple hits. So it's just not a great tech chase tool. Now, if you're using it to set up one, that can be okay, but again, I'm not seeing too many people hit the third hit downward variation very much right now, at least in a higher level. So wouldn't call that a stronger play right now. So to kind of talk about the first hit a little bit, the first hit's really fast. It comes over Marth's head, so it's actually pretty good for getting a move out quickly to get someone that you think might be coming in the air. So like I've used it a little bit to catch Falco lasering the first hit, like towards me, or sometimes even Fox Nair if I can use the disjoint to beat out his foot. So it's pretty good, and then obviously like I did a lot of side B up tilt to kill Armada's Peach, and that wasn't something I invented. It was just something I kind of brought back because it wasn't being used by Marth players for a while. So yeah, first hit has actually some pretty interesting applications. The second hit doesn't really seem to have that many applications as far as I know. The way I usually see second hit work is when someone tries to crouch cancel the first hit. Then the second hit of side B just kind of stuffs their input, and so they kind of just sit there until the third hit, the strong one, hits them. And so that's definitely where a lot of the gimmickiness of side B comes into play. For the third hit, I've seen the up variation used if you can hit it to combo fast fallers. You can up tilt after it, you presumably up air, things like that. The forward hit is obviously really good. I used after I got side B by KJH in the crew battle at Genesis. I used side B as I was coming down, and I was standing in place while I was placed in the air while I was falling down with side B, and then the third hit when I stepped forward after I landed on the ground, it surprised him because he wanted to come in and punish, but he wasn't expecting me to come forward, because the side B, when you're in the air, you just stay in place, and so it's still a bit of a gimmicky use for sure, but side B does have its kind of place. And then there's a third hit down, which is like more safe on shields and stuff like that. And the fourth hit, usually you don't see that very often. You can get it in some niche combo situations, but it's not something you see very often anymore. But yeah, side B is a move that puts you in a lot of lag. You can hold down versus it a lot, or DI out a lot versus the first couple hits. A lot of characters, they hold down versus Marth, like the floaties, like Peach Puff, hold down versus Marth at high percents, because you can hold down versus it for a very long time and not get up tilted out of it. So yeah, I would say that the use of the move has been limited for killing in that way, but there are some times where you can finish off doing a side B, and people don't know exactly when the side B is going to end, so they rush into punish, and that's when you up B them or something like that, because the up B has a big hitbox and it comes out pretty fast. So that's sort of what Ken kind of used and popularized pretty well, and we don't see much of that anymore. Like, he can still get away with it some, but it doesn't work as well for him now. I've messed with it some, and it still has some applications. I believe I've seen M2K and maybe Mango mess with it some too with their Marths, but yeah, I would say that type of style of Marth we don't see very much anymore. So side B just has a little bit less of an effectiveness, but it still definitely has its place, and I think the move could be explored more. But I wouldn't recommend it being a staple of any Marth's play. Next question: do you remember all the fans you meet in person? I'd like to say I do. That's not usually the case. There are just so many fans. There's one of me, and my memory isn't great all the time right now anyway. But I love meeting fans, and I often remember stories that the fans tell me, things about what's going on in their lives, or how my play, or what I've said about depression or other things has affected them and helped them, and I try to really carry those messages with me, and to kind of remind me how I'm doing, and if someone disagrees with something I did, I try to keep that in mind and things like that. But remembering faces and names, I definitely struggle with that a lot more. I do my best, and I'm going to continue trying to do my best. And that's not to say, I don't, obviously I care about all my fans, and I, really care about meeting you guys, but it's just so much this thing can hold, and I'm doing my best. That's all I can really say. But, I love meeting fans, so I can definitely tell you that. All right, next question. What is your opinion on Mango's playstyle compared to yours, Armada's, and Leffen's? Are you going to boot camp at Mango's when you start feeling better / have more energy to travel? We want to see you on the fun day streams, PP. Smiley face. So, I mean, yeah, the question about playstyles, there's just so much stuff you can say about it. But to kind of give an overview, Mango's play, well, he's actually been adjusting it as of EGLX. He's starting to work a lot more fakes into his game, and instead of alternating between going in really hard or playing back for a moment and then going in really hard. And when he plays floaties, he sort of camps a little bit and then goes in. So he's kind of all over the place right now. I think Mango is trying to figure a lot of important stuff out. I don't know what this transition is going to do. I don't feel like the way he was trying to play was working for him, and I also feel like his biggest problem isn't necessarily his playstyle, but kind of how into the game he is. And so now that he's into it and he's trying to revamp his playstyle, I think it'll be pretty interesting to see how it turns out. And he feels pretty good about wanting to have the speed to do that. And of course, that's going to make it difficult for him to always succeed since he has to be so fast. But that is an advantage of Fox, and I'm very confident that Mango can pull that off. Armada and Leffen are both pretty minimalist players. By contrast, their goal isn't to be necessarily fast all the time like Mango is. They're okay with being slow sometimes, but the movements that they do when they want to do them will be pretty fast, whereas Mango's got to go, 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 go all the time. Those two, Armada is very okay with full hopping around and then waiting and then running it and then dash forward, wave dash back, and then running in a down tilt. And Leffen is very okay with... he does some like little Street Fighter, throws out a couple moves. If you run into it, you get hit, and he can convert. And if not, then he, gives you some laser damage, or he finally comes in and tries to punish you. And both of them have like a lot of structure to their game, and it's really cool to see. My play style, well, it's a little hard to say just because I've been out of it for so long, and it's actually pretty interesting that Cactus and I kind of disagree about my playstyle to an extent, but my perception of my playstyle is I'm kind of threatening people all the time, but I'm doing it, and it's like the way Mango's kind of doing it, but I'm not all over the place. I'm in a certain position where it's like, you have to deal with what I'm doing now, and if you don't, I'm going to get you, and if you do, let's see what happens. And so it's a I guess, I wouldn't say restrained, but I would say maybe a little bit more calculated aggression, if that makes sense. But yeah, I wouldn't say I have my own thing defined incredibly well yet, and that's partly because I'm not able to see myself play the way I'd like to right now. As for the question about boot camping at Mango's, yes, I absolutely want to do that. I really want to go to Mango's. It's going to be one of the first things I do once I get better. I think about the tweets and things I'm going to make once I feel better, and that's definitely one of the things I want to do is I'm going to say, hey, Mango, let's hang out. So, I might practice a little bit so I don't go over there and just get wrecked the whole time. So I need to practice for a little while before going over, but I think after that it'd be really fun. I think the stream would enjoy it because I think Mango and I are pretty fun personalities, and I think Mango and I would enjoy it because we both love goofing around with each other. I think it'd be a good time. I think everyone would really like that. And the next question is a little bit more sad. Recently been down in the dumps in my life, got some IRL things that are just generally upsetting, and it's hard to find motivation in Smash or other video games. I know you've probably experienced this before, so what are some things you do to combat this? So yeah, I want to take this very seriously. This is where I want to kind of give a little bit of depression advice just generally. I don't know, because there are different levels of depression. You can be like kind of depressed. You can be like sad, obviously, and then there's like kind of depressed, and then there's more depressed, and then there's very severe where you've had it for months and you don't really know what to do, and then there's like it can get worse. There's variations within all of those things, and then you can like fluctuate. So there's a lot of stuff that I can't really account for. This isn't really a video about depression. I want to make one later, but that's not really the point right now. So I can't really give people necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution. What I can tell you is what worked for me. Two major things I've done both times in my life when I've gotten really depressed, and it's worked. It takes time, obviously, but it's worked well both times I've done it. Those two things are, as much as possible, remove negative, like very negative people from your life. If you can't remove them, minimize contact with them. Obviously, you want to be understanding and respectful towards everyone you meet, but sometimes, you have to make sure that you're in a good enough place to be able to handle that type of negativity, especially if it's constant and things like that. The second thing I did, which, I would argue is more important anyway, is exercise, and that's been demonstrated over and over in research to be just the most helpful thing you can do for yourself. That's not to say if you want to get antidepressants you shouldn't, or you shouldn't go to therapy. I think those are options that you have to weigh carefully, and I also had some therapy at one point that was also helpful. I don't think it was more helpful than exercise. I think exercise was the most helpful part easily. But yeah, so I would definitely recommend exercising first and foremost. That can be hard to want to do, especially if you're really depressed. You're like, oh, it's so much work. I mean, maybe it would help, but I don't want to do it. So I was feeling that, and what I did was so here's how I handled it. When I got up at the beginning of every day, before the depression stuff like really hit me hard, I would roll out of bed and I'd be like, okay, just however many push-ups I can do, I'm just going to do them right now. And it wouldn't be like a ton, it'd be like 10, 15, and then eventually get a little bit bigger of a number. And it wasn't like, I wasn't going to be doing an Ironman anytime soon, so but I went through the rest of my day and I felt like, I'm taking care of myself. I'm really showing commitment to the work I'm doing on myself, and that made me feel better. And then my body physically felt better, which also made me feel better, and so I could do a little more push-ups. Now I'm seeing improvement, and so I knew that the small steps were going to lead into something bigger, and they did. Eventually, I started running again, and I kept on feeling better, and and eventually, when you have, you just have these narrow goals, and eventually, as you continue doing better, you broaden the goals, and when you and then eventually you can start, okay, well, there's this other problem in my life, I can finally start working on this. I've built up enough energy, enough good feelings, enough resolve to do it. So start with what you can do wherever you are with the depression. If you're just a little bit or you're a lot, just start with whatever you can do, and then just start a good routine, even if it's small, and just build from there. And I promise you, it makes a difference over time. It really does. There's other resources like cognitive behavioral therapy ones online if you need to go and check those out. They're free. Those can also be helpful. And like I said, it just really depends on what works best for you. Some people, just will hate doing exercise and they just won't even consider it, and some people, will benefit from it. So there's all kinds of ways. Whatever sounds best to you, I highly recommend. But whoever sent me this question, you and a lot of other people have questions just like you. So I mean, you're going to be able to do it. For Smash specifically, I didn't really. I knew I couldn't do my best, so I just like, well, I'm just going to try and have fun. I'm going to try and improve a little bit. You just have to work with yourself on that. Don't give yourself too hard of a time. Always be understanding. If you get upset with yourself, just take some time before, at the moment or afterward to kind of be like, okay, it's okay that I'm upset and frustrated with myself. This is why it's happening, and this is how I need to be thinking to myself when I do get a little frustrated. And you'll be okay. I believe in you guys. Next question, back to Smash. Was there ever a point where you thought Falco was the best character in the game? Well, this is funny because I've recently recorded the video about Falco's place in the meta. I think there was a time period, a very short period of time, where I did believe Falco could be the best. It was probably in like 2013, 2014 maybe. But I think after that point, I didn't really believe it anymore. And there were a lot of people that did believe Falco was the best, and I go into that for 45 minutes in another video, so I'm not going to go into that here. But no, I didn't really think, I didn't think about it for very long, no. But a lot of people did at one point, which is kind of interesting given how Fox centric we are now, and I think that's pretty interesting. And I also kind of want to point out, I just got so many questions about Mango and Leftman, which I just think is kind of funny, since it's kind of an AMA to me, and then people are like, tell me all about these other guys, and I think that's just pretty funny. So I didn't really have anything specific for them. I just kind of wanted to make a comment about it. I thought it was funny. So okay, a question that I can get in trouble for, and I guess the audio messing up saved me from last time. What is your opinion on the other Smash games, 64, Brawl, Smash 4, and on Bayonetta? So, I mean, I don't enjoy them just collectively really quickly as much as Melee, because I don't feel they have as much movement options. I don't feel like there's not an appropriate amount of interaction for the Punish game. And that's basically, I just don't think there's as many options overall. There's just not as much interaction. and I just don't. So for that reasoning, I don't enjoy them as much. Now to go specifically into the games, for 64, I feel like a lot of people like you death combo everyone in 64. Like not really, but it's kind of like that, and so everyone plays very scared of getting hit, and since you can't move really well, it's there's a lot of time where people are just spacing very close to each other and not hitting each other, not attacking. And so, it doesn't look very appealing to me, but that might just be how the meta worked out, and that's not how Isaiah played based on my, viewing experience of Genesis 3. And of course, that is not representative of the entire 64 metagame and knowledge, but that's kind of just been what I noticed. So 64 people, if you're watching and you'd love to correct me, please do so. I'd love to learn more about it. For Brawl, I actually know, I'm a little more informed about Brawl just because I was like a little, I don't know if I was high level, but I was like mid-level for a lot of my career. I was better earlier in Brawl and worse later because I was like focusing more on Melee later, obviously. And I played Marth, and he was like the only character I found fun in the game. I thought the other characters couldn't really move very well. In Brawl, I think the way my experience of it wasn't so bad early on, but over time, I just felt that Meta Knight and Ice Climbers kind of just ran the game, and if Meta Knight and Ice Climbers play, it was a very degenerate kind of camping mess. If two Ice Climbers play, it was hilarious, and if two Meta Knights played, it was cool. But that was that was the whole meta is what it looked like to me, and that was kind of what it was like at the end. And I'm sure there are worse end game scenarios for games, and the people that are good at Smash 4 now, a lot of them came from Brawl, and they say there was a lot to it, and it took a lot of skill, and I'm not discounting that, but it wasn't a very appealing end game overall. So it's really all I have to say about that. There's a lot of ways you can. I could probably do a video about each of the games. Maybe not 64. I need to research that, but I could say a lot about the history. Brawl wanted to ban Meta Knight and what that was all like, and then they went back on their decision, and then what how we thought Snake was the best character in the beginning, and so there's a lot of stuff I could say about the games and how they changed over time and similarities to Melee and all that, but this is part of a bigger Q&A thing, so I'm doing the best I can with the overview. And then for Smash 4, well, I've played Smash 4 even less than I've played 64, trying to play it well. So I played it at the Invitational before anything was known about it, and I played it once at a couple friends' places a few months ago. So it's and I played 2 games, so it's not very extensive experience. But Smash 4, very aesthetically pretty game. I can say that. I don't really I don't know, pretty similar complaints as I've said overall. Don't really like the movement, don't really like how the punishes work out. It gets patched all the time, so it's kind of even hard to, I'm not religiously following it, so I, don't know all the ins and outs of every patch and everything like that. I did for a while when I followed it a little more early on, so I could have an informed opinion on it, but, just not too interested at this point. Glad that there are more games, there are more perspectives that get exposure and not just Melee, and I'm also glad that both games are able to coexist relatively peacefully. There are certainly lots of flare-ups that we can think about, but I don't think it if you are around for Melee versus Brawl happening for years, this is not super bad. And then the last part is about Bayonetta, and honestly, like I said, I'm not steeped within the Smash 4 community. I'm not asking Smash 4 players all the time what's going on. I'll just say that, on one side we have people like Zero and other, good players or community figures that are saying, this is ridiculous, we got to get her out of here. And then on the other side, people are saying, where's the proof? She's not taking up all the top 8s. And I guess you're either saying, well, you know, do we want to wait for her to take up all the top 8s, or you guys are overreacting, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's really the two sides to it. I don't really have a side, because I don't really know what it's like to play against Bayonetta. Apparently it's ridiculous, but I don't know. The best I got for you guys. So I'm gonna move on. Okay, this is a good one. Hey PP, I learned that wheat greatly inhibits nutrient/vitamin absorption, and that is a huge cause for most health problems. Rip bagels. Well, first of all, we need to stop hating on bagels. Like every once in a while, people will like have these like bagel questions, like questioning my faith. Like, oh, you know, do you think bagels, you know, are really bad? No, the problem. No, the bagels are not the problem. You guys got to chill with all that. Second, I only have bagels when I travel because it's a way to make traveling more enjoyable. It's pretty much the only time I have them anyway. So yeah, bagels, they're you know, they're kind of like, they're my fun food. So you guys gotta stop trying to, like, you know, hate my following, hate my love here. Remember, it's also helping me enjoy life. You guys, like, yeah, okay, maybe if I was eating bagels like, you know, 3 meals a day, there'd be problems. There would definitely be problems. I don't advise that. Don't do that. But if you're trying to eat bagels sometimes, I'm not stopping you, and I'm not stopping me. So let's be cool about all this. All right, next question. Almost as serious as the last question. Do you watch the animes? I would like, well, I was saying no to this, kind of no to this question for a while, but I can't really say that anymore because I just finished an anime. So I guess maybe I'm back on the grind because I'm like pretty bored and waiting to get better. So I'm like back in the anime grind. Let's go. You know, I mean, I'm not like an anime connoisseur. You know, very ignorant about a lot of anime things and trends and what's in season and what's actually good versus whatever people like, whatever's mainstream or whatever. Like, I'm not into all that, and you know, I don't care about dubs versus subs. It's like there's just a lot of you gotta be careful. You know, this is a tough question because there's a lot of people that get, you know, really serious about their anime. Like, oh, you like this, and you're, you know, who do you think you are? You know, so I gotta watch out for that. But you know, I like anime. All right, like I've watched Hunter x Hunter, which is fairly good. Death Note, which I really enjoyed. I've watched Naruto for about like since I was in middle school, so that's kind of just a long-term commitment at this point. Kuroko no Basket, which I really enjoyed. I just finished Psycho Pass, which was okay. Had like some interesting philosophical questions though, which kind of carried it. In my opinion, you know, it's an art form. Please don't tear me apart. And I've watched other stuff. But yeah, no, anime is pretty cool. It can definitely stay. You know, I mean, I think Donald Trump's deporting anime, so we're gonna have to figure out what to do about that. But that's all good. All right. So then I see for the next, it's not a question, but I see many people are saying things about depression. They're being encouraging and sharing stories and saying I'm an inspiration, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. You know, it's like to say thank you all for being vulnerable with me. You know, I'm not gonna put anyone's information out there. You know, I really do want to kind of make a difference for everyone. I want to make sure, you know, we kind of combat the stigma, make people feel accepted, make people feel good, help them work on their issues when they feel like a lot of people won't help them. Yeah, I really want to do a video about depression and kind of help people out. So, you know, here's hoping that comes kind of soon. So thank you all so much for all the wonderful things you had to say about that. Now back to Smash. In order to get myself to a high level in Melee, how many hours a day should I be practicing tech skill, and how much actual people practice should I be doing? So this is a really good question. This is a better question in my opinion than, you know, how do I do this matchup, or what do all the top players do that the high level players don't do? Because this is a question that, you know, whoever you are on the other side of this can use to improve it. Probably whatever thing you're trying to do, whether it's, you know, Melee or, you know, Smash 4 or you know, even Violin or whatever, you know. So practicing tech skill that's the way people usually think about it. Is if I'm alone and I'm practicing tech skill. I'm trying to be faster, and then once I'm fast enough, I don't need to practice anymore, and I go play people. So I think the definition of practice is wrong. I think that conception of practice is wrong, because I think people can always improve when playing alone, even if they're not trying to necessarily get faster. So like I think people at my level, like I want to still be practicing, all the time, and not to just like not for just things like the stuff I can't do right now, like shield drop or double shine. Like there are other things, trying to change up my approaches. So once you're fast enough, once you're able to do all the basic tech, float cancel with Peach, or auto cancel back air with Puff, or save your frames, then you run down tilt with Marth, and laser narrow Falco, and all this stuff. Once you have all those types of things, that's just the beginning. Then you have to start putting the techniques together. So dash wave dash down tilt with Marth, and just all this type of stuff that you have to start putting together, and you have to think about what's the purpose of this tool, how does it relate to everything else, and what can people do to counter it. So you start building approaches and defenses of different things, like if you're Puff, you weave out to you space a bear, and then you weave out, and then when they're trying to come in, then you come in and hit them with another bear or something like that. So that's like a zoning type of play, or an approaching type of play. One the Mango does a lot is he dashes back, and then he runs in with like a shine, and then he nairs out of it. So you practice doing that, you get that as fast as possible, and then like you adjust based on what you think the opponent will do, and you're adjusting that in real time, and that's basically shadow boxing, and you can do that, and that builds your game up a lot. So I highly recommend trying to practice in that way, where you're devising compound approaches, defenses, ways to observe, even stuff to like help you pressure shield, stuff like that. So I think that is highly desirable. I think that will make you improve far more than playing with people. I think once you're playing with people, you should be applying all this stuff that you practiced. So if you're playing people and you're hoping you're going to get better, that's not how it works. You have to get the ideas from the practice on your own, hone those techniques, and then apply it versus people and see the results. And you don't want to just practice to get better. There's video analysis. So there's the practice, there's the video analysis, or there's like the shadow boxing, and learning the new ways to do things in the video analysis, and even like theory discussion with other players that are willing to do it. These types of things are going to help you improve. Playing other people is kind of the stuff that comes after all that for most people. Now, if you have the fortune to play good players all the time, you can probably improve like that. But even so, doing this other type of stuff will still really benefit your gameplay. So I still recommend doing it. That said, practicing on your own 3 to 5 hours a day is what's recommended to succeed based on studies of other disciplines, and it's kind of been my experience that that's worked best for me too. So I do recommend that. I'm not saying you shouldn't play people. I'm just kind of giving the other side of it. So I think once you really start connecting with the game through practice, you'll kind of know when and how much to start playing other people and applying it, and it'll be more fun at that point too. So let's see. I'll do 2 more. Which non-God Smasher would you like to see ascend to God status? Well, I answered this with Cactus before, and my reasoning for that was I think he'd bring new perspective to the top level, because he focuses so much on neutral, and a lot of focus is on punish right now. And certain way of doing things, and I think Cactus would kind of break all of that up and force people to reevaluate how they're playing the game. And I don't feel like, and I think I'll be able to do that to an extent, but I think he'd also really force it because he's just so focused on that. But I don't see that as super likely. I think it'd also be interesting. I'd like to see Hacks do it, because he would just optimize a lot of different parts of the game. But of course he'd also need like cyborg hands and stuff like that. So I don't know how many. I don't know, how many degrees of realism we're going with here. Obviously, I think Plup could absolutely do it anyway, but but I think he's just a wonderful player. But I do think he needs a break right now because he's learning so much, but he's not able to apply everything just because he's getting so burnt out, and it's very sad to see. And then the last question, a lot of people want to, I imagine this is the number one question a lot of people want to know. How do you plan, well, maybe besides, when do I want to come back? How do you plan on stopping 666XX, aka the Wrath of Hungrybox? First of all, that is a very sad title for the world in which Hungrybox is winning. A lot of people really don't like this guy. And it's kind of funny, although it's kind of sad too. But yeah, I don't feel super intimidated by Hungrybox, because I like fighting him and fighting Puff because I had to do it so much already. He just bodied me so much when I started trying to travel, when I was starting to try and improve, and so I learned the matchup with Falco pretty well, and I feel really comfortable with it. Yes, I did lose when I played him before, but I don't feel like I've been in great shape when I've played him for quite a while now. So I definitely feel like if I get back into form, I'd be able to beat him. And so kind of to talk about the overall plan: step 1, get better, get my health better; step 2, practice; step 3, watch his videos, learn his mix-ups, his various ones he likes to use, and especially the ones he wants to use versus Falco and the ones he maybe used versus me at EVO 2015. And then go play him and, probably be able to win. Maybe not. He's a really good player, but I do feel confident in my ability to win. And like I said, I think I can, for the people that would view, I think I can make the matches pretty entertaining too, just because I don't let him play back too much if I can help it. Yeah, no, it'd be fun to play him. Anyway, that is all the questions for now. If you want to ask me questions, because I will be doing more of these, please go to my Ask FM, which I will link in the description. Hopefully the audio is good on this one, please. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll upload the video about Falco's place in the meta very soon. And have a good day, guys.